Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the UW Esports Game of the Week. And tonight, we are featuring our UW League of Legends team in a live match in the Collegiate League of Legends series known as CLoL, where they will be facing off tonight against University of California, Irvine. Our esports program seeks to build and foster community, open doors to the vast career opportunities in the field of gaming, promote the virtues of healthy competition. Through esports, we are able to communicate with one another, forming and developing digital communities so necessary in the challenging times that we are facing. We hope you enjoy being a part of our community, and we invite you to get more involved. Follow us here or on our UW Esports Discord server, as well as on our social channels at U of WA Esports. Now to introduce ourselves, my name is Aaron, a second year at the University of Washington, but you can call me Kestra, and I'll be one of your casters tonight.
Hi, and my name is Eric. You can also call me Lynk. I'm currently a senior at University of Washington, and I'll be your second caster for tonight.
Now, Lynk, heading into tonight's match, both of these teams are coming off of hardly 3 days of experience on the latest patch, and what adjustments do you expect they've made in response to this big round of buffs and nerfs?
Well, I think with the current jungle changes, it means that junglers are getting less experience for the same amount of farm, which means that they're either going to be like devoting even extra resources into farming to just catch up, or an alternative would be providing less focus on the jungler, but giving like the solo laners more ways to have a global presence. Like, for example, picks like Shen, who has like a global presence despite being a top laner, would actually be in some way viable. And also in top lane matchups in general, Shen is not an easily hard counter champion.
Absolutely, and let's see if we see that Shen come out in Champ Select, which we are going to be heading into in just a moment. And we can see so far, I think, that the bans have started to come through, and it's going to be Seraphine starting off for University of California, Irvine, and Twisted Fate for the University of Washington. And on the other hand, Skarner and Udyr are going to be followed up. Two big jungle bans going out against the University of Washington. And against Drago8, the Skarner ban is no surprise, but he did see a nerf this patch, in addition to those jungle system paint changes that you mentioned, Link. And how do you think about this focus on the jungle that UCI is going for?
Well, my guess is they probably watched the game from last week that you have played. And well, we gotta admit, Drago's presence in the jungle with first with the game 1's Udyr and the game 2's Skarner is scary enough to actually force them to use their ban slots for him.
Yep, and we were wondering whether these teams were going to decide to take a step away from the jungle carry-oriented meta that we've seen so far, but both of them picking up their junglers in the first rotation, it seems like, with Mario Cool 4 picking up the Hecarim, I imagine, for Drago8, and going to be met, on the other hand, by Kindred for Mike Young TTV, Galio to boot for UCI, and now it's going to be the Vayne and Lulu locked in for University of Washington. And this could be a pretty devastating combo. We know how powerful these two can be in conjunction with how many shields and buffs Lulu's able to provide for that hyper carry in the form of the Vayne, but imagine how much stronger she gets when she has that Moonstone Renewer at her belt.
But it is also worth noting that Moonstone Renewer nerf actually slightly nerfed its early game or early to mid game healing potential, but the late game at level 18 it still is 100 base healing, and then it scales up with the Moonstone's passive effect. So I guess in a sense, like champions who tend to rush, there's champions who tend to rush Moonstone first would see a slight decrease in their power level, but overall, like as the game goes on, there shouldn't be any additional difficulties.
Yep, I can imagine University of Washington isn't going to sweat that change too hard, as they're not going to be trying to abuse that early power when they're playing for the Vayne. And like you said, there's the Shen ban going to come out for the University of Washington. Have to respect the power of that pick, and a lot of global ults banned out for the University of Washington. Practically 3 out of the 4 between the Talia and the Twisted Fate. University of Washington really respecting the rotational power of UC Irvine, but on the other hand, it's going to be Gragas and Scion banned out for the last phase of UCI. Going to be targeting both the flex pick in the top lane, as well as that solid, powerful base damage tank in the form of the Scion. And as UCI moves for their next pick, seem to be hovering the support role, though they can be flexing it with the Galio that they picked up earlier in the rotation. But so far, it seems like Kim Down is going to be opting for what I think is the Thresh, maybe the Rel. It is going to be the Thresh, locked in for UCI against the Lulu Vayne.
All right, and now let's see what the University of Washington respond with. Also, it is worth noting that despite 3 global presence champion ban, UCI have still managed to grab Galio, which, when placed in the mid lane, is still very viable in terms of roaming.
Yep, it's definitely a testament to how firmly UCI plays to their game plan, and they're going to have to bolster this Galio with some tools to set him up for that hero's entrance. But on the other hand, speaking of game plans, it seems like University of Washington is all in on this Vayne, as Vivamas Mori is going to be picking up the Zillion in the mid lane to boot. That's going to be even more buffing power for the Vayne in the bot lane, as now the Gnar gets picked up for Mario Cool 4. Not totally in line with that game plan of buffing up the Vayne, but the Gnar and the Hecarim definitely providing a powerful front line for the Vayne as the Vladimir gets locked in for the last pick of University of California, Irvine.
Now let's see, both teams are going to be switching to champion, and it's at a Vladimir top. Okay. Well, we haven't seen Vladimir top for a while, to be honest. Like, throughout the entire season 11 changes, Vladimir is just at a pretty awkward position. But we'll see how UCI's top laner, Clone Sheep 7, managed to play him in a way he wants.
Yeah, by and large, top laners try to pivot around fighting for priority, making sure that their junglers can fight for scuttle crabs and neutral objectives, things like the Rift Herald, and even opponents' camps, things of the like. And Gnar definitely fits the bill with a lot of those buffs that he got earlier in the season, giving him a lot of straight-up base damage and stats. But Vladimir, definitely a departure from that kind of archetype, as he's not going to be trying to fight for the lane. He's just going to be sticking it out against the Gnar, trying to play for late game and potentially apply that Hemo Plague and those Tides of Blood to as many members of University of Washington as he can and be that hyper carry to win out in that late game. And but on the other hand, University of Washington, they haven't been in recent weeks too keen on letting the opposing top laners do whatever they please. Drago 8 and formerly Seiko in the past 2 weeks have been such a powerful unit and always playing around that top lane priority, getting both Drago and the top laner ahead. And I can imagine against the Vladimir, it's not going to be any different, but he does have that pool to try to keep himself alive in the face of the ganks of Drago 8. But it's going to be a matter of whether Clone Sheep 7 can keep himself alive and make it to those item breakpoints that he really needs to come online in that late game. But Lynk, speaking of that late game, University of Washington, they've got an insurance policy of their own in the bot lane, don't they?
Yep. And also, additionally, to be honest, with Zillion's scaling is actually very good. So even in the late game, besides Vayne, Zillion's bombs is still a very credible threat for the University of for UC Irvine.
Yeah, they're providing a powerful zoning tool in addition to that crowd control, and I think UC Irvine's team composition definitely kind of playing into it, as they don't have a lot of range available in this composition. Misfortune and Kindred, both some of the more moderately ranged AD carriers, and Thresh and Galio as well, really have to kind of get in there if they want to make the best use out of their tools, and that's to the advantage of University of Washington, especially with the Lulu and the Zillion. They've got to be playing. University of California Irvine really has to be playing into things like the Glitter Lances, like the Polymorph, and like that double bomb, which you said is going to be scaling so well into the late game to provide that fallback AP damage threat just in case Eigenrector doesn't provide enough in these late game fights. But even if even with the Zillion as kind of a backup, it's definitely all in on Eigenrector on this Vayne, I can imagine. And how do you think he's going to be able to play into the composition that UC Irvine have drafted for themselves?
To be honest, UC Irvine's general team comp is rather well-rounded. The only part that is actually really critical that is missing is someone being able to actually cut into University of Washington's team. Like, for Vladimir, he can't really build Proto Belt now, otherwise he would be sacrificing other like valuable mythic items, which means his entrance would be rather awkward. And for Kindred and Misfortune, while both of them are more like the backline or like midline marksmen, so they're not exactly a good choice to enter. And Galio is more like the second one who enters the team fight. So to be honest, overall engagement on the UC Irvine side is actually it's gonna take some I guess good map control and vision manipulation to make
Yep,
sure
definitely
someone gets
lacking
endgame.
that hard engage tool that they need to try to access that backline of the Vayne and the Lulu. But both teams do have the ticking time bomb on their own lanes. Going to be the Vayne for University of Washington and the Vladimir in the top lane for UC Irvine. It's going to be a matter of which one of these carries is going to come online even harder, and of course, which team is going to help to support them to the fullest extent. And moment, I think University of Washington definitely going to have a little bit more of a window in this early game, at least in the top side, with how much more efficiently Drago8 is going to be able to clear on this Hecarim. But on the other hand, Kindred, definitely a powerful early ganker in their own right, always going to be fighting for those Scuttle Crabs and for those opposing camps, and she's going to need a lot of priority to do it. And I think a lot of it is going to come from that bot lane, where Young Ben and Kim Down are really going to have to abuse the fact that Aegon Rector is waiting for that kind of 2-item, 30-minute power spike to come online. They're really going to need to be playing for their jungler if they want to shut down Aegon Rector early and get themselves an edge in this mid game, as we are going to be headed into the game, and the pings are already coming down for UC Irvine. They're going to be looking to go for that bot side river, but seems like University of Washington tipped off to it, are going to be waiting in the tri-bush. For the moment, it seems like just a standard 5-point defense, but we might see something more aggressive. Definitely considering that Kim Down has locked in the Thresh and is already moving towards the territory of the University of Washington, but with no backup, I can imagine things looking a little quiet in this level 1, Link.
Yeah, I think both sides wants. I mean, usually for game 1, both sides wants to play safe just to see how the first game comes out, and then make adjustments to game 2, and then maybe eventually game 3 if there is one.
Yep. Seems like Drago8 just going to opt to start his recall here, maybe pop off a ward, make sure that the Kindred doesn't head straight for his blue buff, as he is going to be opting for what I thought was a red star, but with his pathing, seems like it's going to be towards the blue, as now maybe UC Irvine trying to make their move. The Make It Rain comes down onto Bombs more, he gets a little bit of cheeky poke down there in the mid lane, and it is going to be the blue side start for Drago8. A bit interesting since he did decide to ward his top side, but always have to watch out for things like those late invades. Also a top side start for Mike Young TTV, which is going to mean that we might see both junglers finishing at about the same time in that bot side.
Yep.
Seems like Drago8 not going to start for the buff. Not going to need his top laner to leash him. Instead, it's going to be going for the Wolves, amply providing him that level 2. And I'm interested to see where his pathing goes from here, as he's going to be heading straight for that bot side. I think he wants to get a little bit of an earlier start, just in case the bot side Scuttle Crab is going to be the one with the mark for Mike Young TTV. He definitely wants to be fighting over that, as he doesn't want to be handing over those stats to the Kindred so easily. And if Mike Young TTV opts for this top side full clear, and on the other hand, Drago8 opting for a bit of a faster level 3, then he's going to have that priority, but not unless UC Irvine's bot lane is going to be fighting down there in the bot lane. As you can see in the mid, some sort taking a lot of punishment from Bavamas Mori here, Zillion. Even if he can't hit those bombs, as Bavamas Mori is definitely doing, he's always got those auto attacks. He's got to throw a few gears here and there and break through that magic resist of the Galio, who's trying to fight back with his own poke, but just continuing to eat those double bombs. Bavamas Mori definitely showing his stuff with this pick that isn't so often seen, as now Drago8 did go from Wolves into the full bot side clear, as Kindred going for the cross is going to have level 3, as the con goes down from some sort, but he's going down pretty low himself. Eats a single bomb, and is going to bait Bavamas Mori into Mike Young TTV's clutches, when he aids Bavamas Mori able to pick up the first blood for himself, as Kindred tries to fight back with that last execute, going to trade out the kill. And I don't know if Mike Young TTV was able to get the mark or not, but some sort thought he had a bait going on, but Bavamas Mori just way too aggressive on that Zillion and able to get the first blood and come out 100 gold on top in that position, as now Mike Young TTV is not done on this side of the map, making his way down here for what seems like a bot lane dive, but with the hook missing, it looks like it's going to be nothing, and just going to be securing that bot side Scuttle Crab. Unfortunate for Drago8 that it did end up there, and that he did end up losing his mid laner at that stage, and is going to be forced to see this one away, but he is going to get his own Scuttle Crab. and get a little bit of a jump start on resetting his blue buff timer.
Yeah. But the Kindred did got a slight head start on the marks, and it's also like another ticking bomb on UC Irvine's side with their Kindred stack, because the stack is actually really valuable with the additional bonus range it provides.
Absolutely, and definitely provides a bit of late game insurance, even if it is only a bit of single target damage. Kindred, a terrifying threat in the late game if they can get off the ground with all of those marks. And seems like Mike Young TTV not just going to settle for that Scuttle Crab, but going to head straight for those Raptors, knowing that some sort pushed Vavamas Mori into his own turret. And Vavamas opting for a bit of a greedy build here in the mid lane. Started off with a tier and has now picked himself up a Sapphire Crystal and a Dark Seal. This Dark Seal, without any potions, is kind of just there to put himself in a position to snowball and take advantage of the fact that he might not be dying so soon. His hook lands onto Morona, the Flay going to come through as well. The slow is here. Morona doesn't have a lot of mana to his name, but Youngbin, not with a lot of follow-up available, is not going to be able to get so much as a summoner spell. But Mike Young TTV sticking around down here in the bot lane is going to be picking up the Krugs of Drago 8, is going to be trying to trade off in this play in the top lane as Mario Cool 4 hops on with that Mega onto the Vladimir. Don't know if he's expended that pull yet, but he's going down very low. Clone Chief 7 is, as Drago 8's here. He's got the Ghost, and he's got the Rampage as well. He's going straight through with the devastating charge and hands off the kill to Mario Cool 4. Well played in the top side from the University of Washington, spotting out the jungler in the bot lane and making the play here as the hook goes down onto the Vayne, but with the shield it's going to be, looks like nothing, as some sort in the mid lane. Continuing with the Justice Punch to find those trades, and now Mike Young TTV starting off this Ocean Dragon, spotting off Drago 8 in the top lane. Both these teams constantly trading blows. Wherever the jungler is making a play on the opposite side of the map, they have to be doing something on the other, or they're going to continue to fall behind.
The first dragon would go to UCI at 5 minutes and 50 seconds. That's the Ocean Drake. The second one would be a Mountain Dragon, which means we're going to either see a Cloud Soul or Infernal Soul this game.
Yep, and Infernal Soul definitely really devastating on both of these team compositions, given the kind of hyper carries that they have available to them. Vayne and the Zillion even going to be really hurting if they can get some of those bonus combat stats, not to mention the Kindred and the Vladimir with their full damage builds. But Vavamas Mori in the mid lane, where it looked like he was bullying the Galio a little bit in that early game, is suddenly taking a lot of punishment on his own as he's fallen about 15 CS behind. But hold on a second, in the top lane, Drago 8 maybe looking for something up there, but it looks like it's not going to amount to much, as he might be tipped off to Mike Young TTV on those Krugs, and it's just going to head for this Scuttle Crab. And for the moment, he's got himself a 10 CS gold advantage, or 10 CS advantage in the jungle. Despite the way the Scuttle Crab before Mike Young TTV can be tipped off to it, and the mark is going to be on the Gromp. Lucky for him, it's Mike Young TTV not going to be able to contest that one very well, and it's just going to head over to his red buff. And as far as the full clearing department goes, Drago 8 definitely pulling ahead with superior pathing.
Yep, and we can also see here that the Gnar rushed the Executioner's Calling, and that would be a huge counter for Vladimir himself.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of less experienced players tend not to go for. Kind of want to go, kind of often see them just want to build towards their own mythic items, but things like the Executioner's Calling or the Oblivion Orb can get so much value against champions whose kits revolve almost entirely around healing. And down here in the bot lane, even though Youngbin's got himself a little bit of a CS advantage, the trades starting to come into the favor of Eigenrector thanks to some well-placed shields from Morona. But speaking of CS advantage, they're really starting to come together for the rest of UC Irvine. Clone Chief, even after that kill, thanks to a gank from Drago 8, has pulled up about 11. But hold on a second, Drago 8 spotting the play from some sort of Mike Young TTV. They had no idea, but they're going to go for it anyway. Comes through from the Galio, but it looks like it's not going to be the trigger pulled quite just yet, as Drago 8 was tipped off to it, and he has the level 6. He's going to go Mario full here with the teleport, but the Vladimir is going to come in as well. Going to capture all 4 members of UC Irvine, even though Lynk has got the ultimate to counter out the bullet time. Going to find 2 members of the University of Washington. What looks like a massive play for them is going to get absolutely turned around by one single ultimate from Youngbin on the Misfortune, and now 3 members of the University of Washington left to run away from their bot lane turret. Every single member of both teams down there in the bot lane play, but it's Youngbin who comes out on top with superior positioning, even after getting caught by that Gnar ultimate. A really well played fight from both teams, but UC Irvine coming out on top with the Misfortune ultimate.
Yeah, that fight back there is like the way I see League team fights is about there's also the factor of connections, like how well your backline, your frontline connects. And back then, the area on University of Washington side is their backline are not well connected with the Gnar engagement, which led to Gnar's own death, and also the burning of his flash and teleport spell, which makes the next dragon fight gonna be extra hard for Mario Cool 4.
Yeah, this is another point that's often missed by some of the less experienced players in the game. Is the double bomb going to land onto the young TTV? But that's not going to stop him from dumping right in with the dance of arrows. If the hooks lands on to Drago 8, he doesn't have the onslaught of shadows, and he executes goes straight onto Vavamas Mori, who blew the ultimate, the time rune going onto the Hecarim, but only delays his death as the smite actually goes through for Drago 8. And the Kindred ultimate, the Lamb's Respite, able to keep him alive long enough to pick up the Herald, and that time rune not going to entire waste. That does mean that the Rift Herald is going to get to be picked up by the University of Washington as a little bit of a consolation prize for the mid and jungle going down. But UC Irvine, for the moment, continuing to pull ahead with that bot lane lead, is now Mario Cool 4 maybe trying to contest the Gromp here, as Mike Young TTV looking to get a little bit more out of that play. But Palamas Mori is already back. Gromp is going to go the way of Mike Young TTV, and so is the Mark, but thanks to the Blast Plant, both of them are able to walk away from this play, but maybe not Clone Sheep, as he walked a bit too far forward, has the pool to dodge out on that turret dagger, and the Hemo play going to come down as well. The Tides of Blood trying to keep Mario Cool 4 at bay, and the ultimate is expended, but fortunately his life is going to be preserved, and Drago 8 walking away from what looked like a pretty bad play for the University of Washington with the Rift Herald now at his disposal. Kind of a strange turn of events. As far as the neutral objectives go, it seems like Mike Young TTV not going to be too phased here, as he still has that bot lane priority that Young Bin has worked so hard for. Now the assistance ping's coming down here, some sort with the Predator. Young Bin getting into melee range. The final hour comes down for Agen Rector. The flash going to come through. He's trying to outplay it, and the teleport is coming through from the University of Washington. But it looks like it's only going to be walking into a 2v1. Vavamas Mori lands the double bomb onto some sort, but he's got to get his way out of here before the rest of the team shows up. And a great Predator play from some sort means a pick as soon as the Mountain Dragon spawns, and Mike Young TTV buying himself enough time to back for the Kraken Slayer completion at 11 minutes into this game in preparation for this neutral objective.
And we can already see Thresh is setting up wards around the dragon. So this dragon, if nothing out of the ordinary shows up, would likely go to UC Irvine.
Here's an interesting build path, I think, from Vavamas Mori. Hold on, he's going to get jumped on by that Justice Punch, going to get locked up by the taunt, and big damage from the Galio. Often think of this champion as a supportive role in the mid lane, but when he's armed with things like the Hextech Alternator and that Predator empowered attack, to do so much damage. I don't think he needed to use the Predator there against Vavamas Mori, who's kind of lagging behind here in the build department, as some sort continues to pull about 30 CS ahead against the Zillion, really exploiting the kind of weaker laning phase on the side of Vavamas. And I wanted to point it out that he is going for a new build path for the Everfrost Mythic item, and I have to hold that offer once again as some sort making his way down here. He is level 10 over Vavamas Mori at just level 8, and even over Morona level 6 down there in the support role, really tearing it apart in the mid lane here, as UC Irvine always positioning themselves in the bot lane, trying to spot any stray University of Washington members straying a bit too far forward in what they think is their own jungle, and just buying so much space for Young Bin to farm it out safely and get as many double ups as he can to force Agen Rector away from those waves. If they can stunt the gold of the Vayne, they can stunt the opportunity she has to come online, and that's going to get them even closer to that soul win condition, which is going to be coming so early thanks to some really early neutral objective taking by Mike Young TTV, and I think that's putting University of Washington in a pretty bad spot heading into this mid game late.
Yeah, in general, UW at the moment is well behind, I think, on all 5 rows behind our items. So now, like, the way they can turn it is a proper team fight that actually, when you connect your front line and your back line and work together. But we'll see how
we talked about earlier in that bot lane play, right, where Even though Drago 8 went in with that onslaught of shadows, Mario Cool 4 found himself an absolutely massive Gnar ultimate. When the rest of the team isn't able to follow up like that, it doesn't matter how big the play you make is, because League of Legends played with 5 members on your team. You've got to be playing with each of them, and Mario Cool 4, even though he found himself that opportunity, wasn't quite enough, and that bought Yungbin enough time to reposition himself and find himself the bullet time that really tore apart the front line of the University of Washington.
And right before the exploration, UCI managed to grab the first third gold, which is also a lot of resource funneled towards Misfortune.
Yeah, and that's going to be the Gale Force heading straight into her pocket here. And what I want to point out is that 3 Ionian Boots of Lucidity have been picked up by University of California, Irvine. In one of the earlier patches of the season, they received a buff that brought them to about 20 ability haste provision in addition to their already existing bonuses, things like the Summoner Spell Haste, and I think that's really pushed them over the edge, and not enough people, I think, are really appreciating how powerful this item can be when you're playing champions that rely on spell casting. And Clone Sheep on the Vladimir and Yungbin on the Misfortune definitely fit the bill as Misfortune, even though she's an auto-attacking AD carry, always trying to weave in things like the Make It Rain and the Double Up, and I think it's really heads-up play here for UC Irvine, and I think that's a great testament to how well they're acquainted with their item builds that have become so powerful in Season 11.
Now we see the 3 members of UCI gathered up top lane, likely going to get the top turret.
Yep, and this is such a departure from some of the games we've seen in recent weeks for the University of Washington. Normally, it's them running straight into the jungles of the opposing teams, trying to find out whatever picks they can, but instead, UC Irvine running into both the bot side and the top side of the University of Washington like it's nobody's business, and no one daring to stop them, as they have to respect how absolutely powerful the rest of the teams are. There's that Everfrost completed for Vawamas Mori. That's the synergy with the Zillion. He's able to lock him up and secure that double bomb if he can hit the Everfrost. Maybe there's a play here in the top lane. Mike Evans usually taking his time on the Rift Tower. Mario Cool 4 not even getting a chance to get the Mega Gnar available to him as the bullet time finishes him off, and all the Onslaught Shadow is going to be dodged out by Clone Sheep as the Teemo play comes down onto 1 member. He's got 2 levels over Drago 8, but Eigenrector's joined the battle. The Empowered Transfusion here as well. Finally, the hero's entrance comes through, but not finding an knock when Drago 8 with the Ghost is able to walk away from it, but he's looking for the re-engage with the devastating charge. Here's the Tides of Blood from Clone Sheep, finding at least 2 members, and Transfusion taking Drago very low. The exhaust comes through from Arona and some sort. Finally, to get shut down by Eigenrector. The second kill gets picked up for him. A dive finally going the way of the University of Washington and sending 2 kills into the pocket of their hyper carry in the form of Eigenrector on the Vayne. That's going to go a long way, I think, for the University of Washington, as Eigenrector about 40, maybe 30 CS behind Yungbin at this stage in the game, and even though they didn't pick up his shutdown, Eigenrector was able to find some sort in that turret dive that looks so dicey from the University of Washington, but we're all fortunately able to walk away from that one with their lives, and that's really huge. Even with the second Herald coming down in the mid lane, breaking down that second tier turret, but heading into this next dragon that is potentially going to put UC Irvine at soul point. They need every bit of gold they can in the pockets of Eigenrector, and that's going to at least mean the Kraken Slayer completion, but maybe not enough to contest this Infernal Dragon, which is going to be handed off quietly to UC Irvine. This is dangerous, folks. At just 17 minutes into this game, we are looking at a 22-minute Infernal Soul for a team that can use it so devastatingly on the side of UC Irvine. And what really makes this dangerous is that it's not giving the window for Eigenrector to get that second item completion he needs to come online. And Lynk, what does University of Washington need to do to try to stop this devastating win condition from going the way of UC Irvine?
Well, the way I see it at the moment, it's all about protect the Vayne, to be honest. Because if you look at the damage output, so Hecarim is slightly behind on, I mean not slightly, but greatly behind on items. So even if he goes into a damage build, he will be obliterated in a team fight in a matter of like split seconds. And then Gnar, if in the Mega Gnar form, that would be slightly more tanky. However, it's still not enough to withstand the entire opposing team. So if you have Gnar and Hecarim both charging in, that's like that short window is what Vayne needs and needs to utilize at all cost. so that Vayne can actually pop out enough damage in return. So
just like you said, go ahead and finish your point, Lynk.
Oh yeah, and so currently the win condition for University of Washington will be like all eyes will be on the Vayne. Also, if you look at Zillion, Zillion's going more towards like a utility build with Everfrost. So his damage will not come up online soon, which means that like in terms of general damage output, it will be the Vayne.
Yep, hold on a second. Double bomb going to land the Everfrost. He has to use timer. Here's the hero's entrance, but 3 members of UC Irvine going to finish off with Bombus Moore. He thought he'd gotten himself an opportunity to snipe out the AD carry with a well-placed combo, but it only spells his own doom. And fortunately for University of Washington, there is no Baron Nashor for UC Irvine to follow up on, but things only looking more bleak for them. And like you said, it's really got to come down to a well-played, well-coordinated 5v5 team fight. And Drago8 and Mario Cool 4 really stunted in the item builds. There was this brief moment where it seemed like Drago8 and Mike Young were on pace with similar mythics, but Mike Young heading back to base with an entire collector at his disposal, not even opting for those tier 2 boots, is practically double the items of Drago8 at this stage in the game. And like you mentioned, this is so difficult for the University of Washington, for the Gnar and the Hecarim to be so far behind in terms of items because they don't have those innate tankiness in their kits. They've got to rely on having tank stats, and all they've got to their names is the Stridebreaker and the Divine Sunder. If they aren't able to tank it up for Eigenrector and Morona and Vivamus Mori as well, then that backline is just going to get absolutely devastated, and it's not going to mean anything that UC Irvine doesn't have that main engaged tool that we were concerned about, and UC Irvine not concerned about taking this Baron Nashor at just 20 minutes into this game. But it seems like University of Washington are tipped off to it, and they're going to respect at least whatever meager teamfight power University of Washington have available to them and peel off on it. Just find gold wherever they can. Just continue to funnel some of those lanes minions into their pockets. But for the moment, they're just looking so insurmountably stronger than the University of Washington, as the Muramon has been completed for Young Van in addition to that serrated Dirkus. In the meantime, Eigenrector continuing to fall behind in the gold department as he's got to take a departure from his core items. Something like the Ginsu's or the Rune's Hurricane has to pick up the Executioner's Calling. It really hurts, but he's got to against the likes of Clone Sheep on this Vladimir, who's even going on the Void Staff now as the rest of the item completions come through. And meanwhile, University of Washington struggling to scrounge together whatever gold they can. Can't even access their own jungle camps lest a fight occur. They've got to play really safely. You saw what happened when Vivamus Mori, even with the likes of the Time Rune available to him, strayed a bit too far forward in his lane. And UC Irvine, knowing how much stronger they are, going to force the hand onto the Baron Nashor, and the pings are coming through. University of Washington are no slouches when it comes to these kinds of plays, but it might be a bit too late as Baron has gone down to about half HP, and some sort is working hard to zone away the rest of the team. The Drago8 gets locked up by the hook. The Onslaught of Shadow is not going to find anyone as the hero's entrance comes through. He gets resurrected, but straight into a taunt as Mike TTV finishes off Zillion, who has nothing there to stop him. And Eigenrector, even though he's got himself the Wild Drug, is going to go down in an instant to Mike TTV, who's found himself all the way into that backline and is finishing off the ace with a double kill for UC Irvine. Baron Nashor not even going to be necessary for this team, as they're going to continue to bear down this mid lane, but head straight over to the Baron Nashor. It looks like without much of a wave to them, they're going to find so much more. And Mike Young TTV going to make his way down to the bot side river and pick themselves up the Infernal Dragon. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet for UC Irvine, and on the other hand, for University of Washington, it is looking all but written at a 10,000 gold deficit. 22 minutes into this game, Link.
Yeah.
Both these massive neutral objective buffs going the way of University of California Irvine and University of Washington, thinking they had to stop that Baron from going into the hands of their opponents, but walk straight into their clutches. And once again, we're not able to find that connected team fight that you're so looking, there's so much looking for between the Gnar, between the Onslaught of Shadows and Eigenrector. Without that front line available to him, it's going to mean Mike Young TTV dance of arrowsing his way straight into that backline and waltzing through and one-shotting Eigenrector without so much as a thought. now 23 minutes into this game, all UC Irvine's got to do is not disconnect their monitors as they are looking insurmountably stronger. The Collector is in the pocket of the Misfortune, who one-shots. Vayne walks a bit too far forward into a bullet time. 3 items in the hands of Youngbin, and now the life of Eigenrector there, as well as 5 members of UC Irvine not going to be necessary. Vladimir down there in the ball lane, Baron Empowered minions in the mid. Inhibitor going to go down. The hyper carry got evaporated with a single ability from UC Irvine, and now Drago8 with what he thinks is a flank, straying a bit too forward, even into his own base. Has got to find something here. This has got to be the last stand. Clone Sheep doesn't even care about this last push. Doesn't mean a thing to him. If they don't end the game here, that's fine by them.
There's
Now
the
the
Marl
that comes through, sends 3 into the hands of the University of Washington, but they are looking so tanky of some sort. Pops his own hourglass to keep himself alive. Him down with the stopwatch as well. Is going to buy so much time to Lamb's respite. Going to keep the rest of the team alive, and Thalamus Mori looks like he's about to go down, but the game is going to be finished in the favor of UC Irvine. Clone Chief finally making his way over, and an absolutely terrifying victory from UC Irvine, destroying University of Washington, who looks so strong in these past couple weeks. Well, we really just witnessed what I think was the slaughter there. And University of Washington, while they've had their fair share of 20-minute victories, I think UC Irvine, Lynk, they really just showed us a masterclass of how to play some great League of Legends tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially, like, I mean, a key moment that I want to point out is, do you remember, like, the time when Galio was charging with Predator and caught Vayne off guard in bot lane farming alone, along with the Misfortune? I think that was, like, that's, like, one of the key moments that actually decided the outcome of the game, because, like, Vayne is alone farming by herself with no support nearby, and then they have no vision in even on their own side of their jungle to ensure that no one's coming for the Vayne. Like, this lack of vision or just general awareness is actually, like, it happened multiple times in this entire game.
Yep, it's mistakes like those that I think University of Washington maybe aren't too used to seeing, as that play, even though it seemed like it was just a lapse in University of Washington, maybe missing out of a couple of vision pockets here and there and buying enough time for the Galio to march his way down with the Predator and find himself a pick, even though it didn't seem like much, I think really snowballed out of that earlier team fight where University of Washington, thinking they had the play between Drago8 and Mario Cool 4 on the Gnar with that big engage, but getting turned around on them, even though that just found them 2 kills, it was a big enough advantage for the University of California Irvine to start to get things going, really start to play for this bot side and wrestle away this vision. And University of Washington not really respecting that at this stage in the game, they'd be that far enough behind that they wouldn't even have vision in their own bot side jungle. And University of California Irvine playing it so well, not only to snowball incremental advantages like those, just a double kill from a team fight, just a pick onto the Vayne, but continuing to build those into CS advantages across every single lane. It didn't seem like it was a matter of just getting outplayed in the lane, but really University of California Irvine just playing with their priorities so well to wrestle away advantages where they knew that they were stronger than their opponents. Yeah, and University of Washington, even though it seemed like things were going a bit even in that early game, but don't think it's so much a matter of maybe playing a bit tighter in the lanes, but really not ceding away so much in these early fights. And Link, how do you think University of Washington wants to change their game plan heading into this game 2, if at all?
I think for game 2, if we assume that UCI is going for a similar comp, that in overall, like, it does not necessarily have great engagement tools, but it can easily cut off the connection between the other team's frontline and backline, as we see there, since, like, Vladimir was constantly during team fights harassing the Vayne, keeping the Vayne out of reach from the rest of his team members. And Vayne, being a late game hyper carrier who severely lacks, like, high damage output in early to mid game, has no way to actually finish off the Vladimir, which means that Vladimir has the absolute freedom to do whatever he wants in order to cut off Vayne from the rest of his team. So if UCI continues with this strategy, then what the University of Washington needs to adjust to is having an AD carry that actually has credible damage in early or at least mid game.
Right, it seemed like the Vayne Eigenrector not getting the freedom to just farm it out in that bot lane. He was really kind of getting bullied not only by the bot lane of UCI, but by the rest of the team as well. We saw throughout that early game, always 3, always 4 members of UCI down there breathing down the necks of Eigenrector and Morona. Even if it didn't amount to a kill, there was always a Kindred waiting in the Krugs bush, waiting in the Tri-bush. Galio marching down there with the Predator as soon as that hero's entrance comes down off cooldown. And I think one of the most pivotal aspects of University of California Irvine's team composition was some sort on this Galio. He was a part of every single play, and he was always making it happen not only in the lane, abusing the Zillion and coming ahead on what we think is more of a passive kind of pick in the mid lane, but making plays all across the map and really setting the bot lane of University of Washington behind. Yeah, and it was something that was reflected in the bans of the University of Washington sent through for that game 1, trying to ban out as many of those global as they could, but it seemed like they need to ban out just one more as the Galio, I don't think, can go back into the hands of some sort. Yes, lest the University of Washington really have something up their sleeve in for that play. But like you said, not only the Vayne, it's not only the AD carry that might have to make an adjustment here, but maybe the mid lane as well. It seems like both of those picks really trying to scale into the late game, but it seems like University of California Irvine have shown how well they're able to exploit those pockets of disadvantage for the University of Washington. They know that the Zillion is weak in lane. They know that the Vayne is weak in the lane, and they're doing everything they can to set them as far behind as possible, really accelerating the pace of the game with the bot lane priority translating into really early dragon takes. And it just gives University of Washington no breathing room at all to play for the scaling team composition. It didn't even matter that the Vlad hardly needed to come online, hardly even needed to participate in some of those last few fights, because University of California Irvine, the rest of them had done so well to take advantage of University of Washington, march into the bot lane where they knew the Vayne was weak, barrel down the mid lane with both of those Rift Herald. And I think University of Washington, not only in the AD carry, like you said, they've got to find something with more early and mid game presence, but maybe in the rest of the lanes as well, Link.
I mean, I can see Gnar being like still a safe pick, because currently, I mean, in solo queue, Gnar with especially Strikebreaker Gnar still has a rather credible like pick rate and win rate in general. But like you said, the mid lane and the bottom lane that we both agree on needs to be adjusted. Like not in an extreme degree, but there has to be some adjustments.
Yep, I wouldn't say that there was so much wrong with playmaking going on the side of the top side for the University of Washington, even if, like you mentioned, throughout that game, they were a bit disconnected from the rest of the team. But maybe that was largely a matter of just the rest of the team not being at the right item position to follow up on those kinds of big engages. But from then on, after the game started to snowball out of control, it was less in the hands of the Hecarim and the Gnar, more so that they really didn't have any opportunity that they could to try to find anything like that, as University of California Irvine playing each fight with so much space available to them, doing practically whatever they could and not giving so much as a chance for the onslaught of shadows, let alone the Gnar ultimate, which is so much more situational. And maybe University of Washington maybe just want a bit more consistent power available to them in that top set that they've been able to work so well off of. And University of Washington definitely kind of struggling, I think, on this patch, is the Hecarim not showing up as well for Drago 8 as he has in the past on some of his more trademark picks, especially on that Skarner that we've seen in the past couple weeks, when he's able to play that full-on frontliner. Even though Hecarim has a kind of similar game plan, it's definitely a bit more dicey when you're playing one of the single frontliners available to that team. And maybe Drago 8 opts for something like that Dr. Mundo that we saw last week. It's a bit more in line with that kind of playstyle that he opts for. But it's not going to come down to just the picks. University of Washington really have to tighten up not only the rotational play, but that vision play as well. Can't let those kinds of picks happen. Galio's walking straight through your own jungle. That's not what you want to see if you want to secure that early game for yourselves. Yep, and for the moment, as we are waiting for the game 2, it seems like we are waiting for a technical issue on one of the players for the University of Washington, and we don't have an estimated time of arrival for when that might be fixed, so we are going to take it into a break here, and we hope you'll join us for game 2 to see if University of Washington is able to strike back against UC Irvine.
Right. Now, see you guys at around 4 p.m. PST.
Welcome back from the break, everybody. We are getting into game 2 as we are waiting on the lobby for two teams. University of Washington facing off against University of California, Irvine, coming off a pretty rough game 1 defeat at the hands of University of California, Irvine. And Lynk, we were talking about some of the adjustments that University of Washington might have to make if they want to be able to strike back in this game 2 and bring it to a game 3.
Well, I think the main issue that the University of Washington had in terms of team composition is their mid laner and bot laner were both lacking in terms of damage, which makes the mid game team fights, like the general connectivity between the front line and back line, is just not gonna be strong enough to withhold a Vladimir charging at you, and which means that they have to pick like stronger, in general, stronger mid lane and bottom laner.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the avenues University of Washington has available to see if they decide to see it through, as we are going to be headed into the champion selection for this game 2. This is going to be UC Irvine opting for the blue side this game, and University of Washington on the red, and they're going to be leading this one off with a Seraphine ban. For either Vamos Mori or Morona, this is definitely a powerful pick, especially if you know how to play it in some of the other lanes in the game. Can be played practically everywhere except the jungle. You've got to respect that, which is why they're going to be banning it away. And following it up with the Skarner for Drago 8, his signature pick going to be taken away from him. If you've done your homework, you cannot let this pick into the hands, or the claws rather, of Drago 8. And on the other hand, it's going to be the Camille band away for the University of Washington, taking that one away from Clone Sheep. And here's an adjustment from that game 1 already. It's going to be the Kindred band away from Mike Young TTV, which he was able to play to such full effect in that game 1, Link.
And the third ban of UCI goes to Udyr, which is again a focus on Drago, just not letting him play his familiar champions, I guess.
Yeah, and speaking of familiar champions, there is one left on the table. The Dr. Mundo that we saw last week, and I don't know how amped he is about playing that one, but he was able to secure a pretty solid victory with it in one of last week's games. Is the Twist of Fate going to be banned away for University of Washington? They're able to take away the power pick in the form of the Creon and the Kindred going out as well, but that's going to mean the Galio once again going the way of some sort. Absolutely the MVP, I think, of that game 1, with how much playmaking he was making going on at all stages of the game. And University of Washington have now handed it over once again to some sort. Maybe they think they've got something up their sleeve. Maybe they're going to try to pick something to exploit the Galio lane, something like an AD mid laner. What do you think is the best response to this Galio first pick on the blue side?
To be honest, I'm not exactly familiar with Vamos Mori's champion pool, and so I can't say, because to focus on the Galio, you can either beat him in lane or outshove him. So if he ults away, he loses a lot of gold and resource in terms of mid lane. Because there's also a mid lane adjustment where the cannon minion gets bonus attack speed when attacking the turn, which makes sieging really easy. So most of the time. Oh, and here comes let's look at the pick for University of Washington. We got a Thresh and a Caitlyn, I believe.
Yep, and Thresh going in the hands of Morona. Morona really able to use that pick to full effect against some of the other teams University of Washington has faced off against, even though it's not one of the more traditional full engage supports, always landing those hooks, those death sentences, really setting up University of Washington for these fights. And Caitlyn, one of the more unusual carries, I think, not something that we're too used to seeing in professional play, unlike the Jhin, who's been a mainstay for so many months down there in the bot lane, Link.
But it is worth pointing out that Caitlyn did receive a buff this patch, but it's more like a scaling buff instead of early game power level buff. Because like the buff Caitlyn received is her growth stat in terms of attack damage and attack speed, which at level 18 transfers to like equivalent of a dagger and a longsword. And now coming to the third pick on UCI side, they got a Nautilus.
Yeah, look at the crowd control on this UCI composition. Just so much setup to follow up with the rest of the team. If the dredge line hits, it's going to be a deadly flourish and a hero's entrance, and anything in any order, to be honest. And maybe Caitlyn Thresh going to have a lot of enough range to try to resist that kind of play. But Vamos Mori, there it is, going to be going for that AD counter pick into the Galio. Going to try to beat him down in lane and not let him run around doing whatever he wants with those predator boots. Lucian really going to be fighting for the mid lane, and let's see if the rest of the team is going to be able to play forward. As here's something interesting, Link. In the first game, both of the junglers are picked up in the first rotation, but now they're left to the second phase, where the bans can continue to spot them out.
I think. Okay, so here comes the jungler ban, and so we see the UCI banning Olaf, and while University of Washington banning Talia. So I think in general, in game 2, both teams realized the power and the impact the jungler still has on the overall map. So the sooner you pick your jungler, the sooner you will likely get counterpicked by the solo lane champions, or let's say the opposing team's jungler. So I think both teams will be trying to reserve their jungler pick for the last spot, just so they can minimize the cost for picking early.
Yep, I can imagine both of these junglers want to be in a position of the matchup. And now the Karth is going to be banned away from Drago, another one of his main picks. And a lot of the main run-at-you champions that we've seen Drago on are going to be taken away. But once again, Dr. Mundo, as well as the Hecarim from Game 1, both on the table for Drago should he opt for them. But I wonder whether it's going to be the pick in this first phase of the second picking round. Sagan Rector taking the time down, really wants to think things out. And it's going to be the top lane, I imagine. Aegon Rector picking up the Gragas 4, Mario Cool 4, and going to take a bit of a safer approach to that top lane instead of something like the Gnar. Going to be looking for that big engages, but still Gragas, one of the most powerful team fighting champions once he's entered that mid-game phase where he can find big explosive casks and those body slam flashes. But on the other hand, Clone Sheep seems like he's going to be taking the proactive position in this top lane, as instead of the Vladimir, that safe scaling option, it's going to be the Gnar, going to try to bully out Mario Cool 4 and still provide that team fighting power if you can find those big ultimates. But here it is, University of California Irvine are going to be the ones to pick out the jungler first, and I think they got to try to go for something like the Lilia, seeing as they don't have a lot of consistent AP damage available to them, but it seems like they really want to go in on this engage option, covering things like the Hecarim, but instead it's going to be the Kha'Zix, Link. And what do you think about this pick?
Well, with Gnar on the table, and then you introduce a Kha'Zix plus a Nautilus, so UC Irvine basically fixed their what the team lacks in game 1, which is a hard engage. Now they have multiple options for the hard engagement. So the Galio will actually have even more comfortable situations to where he can cast Hero's Entrance and then just basically decide the outcome of a team fight. And then on Universities of Washington side, we are seeing a Lilia jungle, which is a balance on the AP damage overall for the team. And we'll see how this plays out.
Yep, this opens up the opportunity for Mario Cool 4 to opt for that full tank build on the Gragas. things like the Frostfire Gauntlet or even the Sunfire Aegis available to him to provide a really beefy frontline option that I think University of Washington is desperately asking for. As they do have this double marksman composition and the Thresh to boot, and even Thresh is a little bit tanky. He's not going to be the main frontliner to stop these big boys on the side of UC Irvine from running straight through and accessing those marksmen. But speaking of those marksmen, I think that the Lucian and the Caitlyn in that first phase are what really informed this Kha'Zix pick on the side of UC Irvine. Mike Young TTV taking a bit of a different approach to the Kindred. It's not going to be that kind of scaling option that's going to be tearing apart whether it's the front line or the back line of University of Washington, but rather going to be fighting it out in the early game, especially against the likes of the Lilia. And one concern, though, that I have about UC Irvine's composition is that they're kind of banking their AP damage on some sort on this Galio. And while he's been a big performer and no short as far as damage goes, it's maybe not that big full consistent damage threat that you might be expecting in a balanced team composition, but it might not matter, at least against most members of the University of Washington. Lilia, Lucian, and Caitlyn, definitely a squishy core on the side of University of Washington, but if they don't have a big consistent damage option against the Gragas, he can build things like the Thornmail and like the Frostfire Gauntlet and won't take so much as a scratch from this UC Irvine composition unless they can really snowball like they did in Game 1.
It's also worth pointing out that in terms of overall tankiness, Gnar, Galio, and Nautilus, they're actually more leans towards what I call a pseudo tank. Like, it has some level of tankiness in it, but you should not be expecting it to be able to tank as much damage as a Shen or a Maokai or, let's say, a Cho'Gath. So, if you're against two marksmen with disengagement 2 and also peeling support, and I guess if Gragas goes full tank, he'll be acting more like a warden, like a protective tank. Like, if you have pseudo tanks up against full tank and marksmen who are able to dish out damage with mobility, it will actually be really painful for the Gnar, the Galio, the Nautilus to actually, at least without proper like vision control and manipulation, they can't really just charge head in, or it's gonna cost them greatly. So again, this game, I think vision, like the control of vision, especially with the flanking Kha'Zix, vision would be the core deciding factor, especially as the game goes down to the later stage after 20 minutes or after 25 minutes, if the game goes that long.
Yep, I'm really hoping for University of Washington's sake that they start to tighten up in that vision department. Try to prevent those plays that were happening in Game 1 from going on again. Things like the jungler and mid laner walking straight through the bot side jungle of their own team and really just not letting the Vayne in Game 1 have so much as a chance to breathe. But in that Game 1, the question for UC Irvine was whether they can access the backline and stop the Vayne from fighting the entire team by herself, and they answered in Game 1 in spades. We've got a similar question in Game 2 here as to whether they can access the likes of the Caitlyn and the Lucian with this composition that you said doesn't have the most reliable hard engage between these champions, and are really not totally reliable unless Clone Sheep is on top of it with his rage management. And on the other hand, it's going to come down to the likes of Kim Down and some sort to follow up with the dredge line into the hero's entrance. But you see Irvine, we saw in Game 1, they've been able to play it to such full effect even without the consistent tools of a more full team composition. And now we're going to be headed into the game. We're going to see how UC Irvine is going to be playing this early game out with the Kha'Zix at their disposal. Kindred in Game 1, definitely one of the more aggressive early game junglers, and Kha'Zix no different, but back then they had a bit of late game insurance between the Vladimir and the Kindred, but this time around, not too many hyper carries on their side besides the Jhin, and that's going to mean that they're going to have to win out even harder in this early game, unless University of Washington let their marksmen scale. Here we are headed into the game. Gragas with 2 potions. Might be a misclick. But it's going to be Doran's Ring instead. And maybe signaling that he's going to be opting for a more AP option, which I think is going to be pretty dangerous if University of Washington is leaving the peeling duties to just the Thresh. But of course, Doran's Ring, just a really standard starting item. Whether you're a tank or an AP champion, and Gragas really appreciating not only the AP and the health, but the mana gain as well. And
Yep.
Once again, a bit of a quieter level 1. Just going to send out a ward into the brush, and Morona going to back off and get himself the sweeper ward as well, which might come into handy here as Caitlyn does spot out the ward in the river. Eigenrector with a solid position is going to mean that Morona might be using that sweeper really early into this game, and it's important these early level 1 vision takes because of the dynamic of the Kha'Zix and the Lilia matchup. Kha'Zix really going to be trying to look for the invades against Drago, who instead is going to be opting for the full clear as much as he can. It's going to be a matter of whether Drago can get that full clear off and whether Mike Young can stop him, because Kha'Zix clear just naturally slower than that of Lilia. But hold on a second. We're looking at a late invade here onto the Raptors. Really standard Lilia stuff here. University of Washington going to be able to steal those Raptors away as Mike Young TTV right beneath them is going to be opting for the red buff take instead as the Raptors, excuse me, get taken away right under the skin of his nose, and Drago8 taking away one of his opponent's camps and is going to be heading straight towards his top side, is already garnering advantage with his superior pathing.
And I think a little minor detail on Gragas starting with Doran's Reign, because oh wait, actually here's a fight coming out.
Yeah, here's a fight here. The dredge line going on to the Caitlyn and the root landing as well. Just level 1, I don't imagine it's good. Then just a few love taps here and there. The Caitlyn Q going down and traded out with the bouncing grenade as well, but it seems like even if it didn't garner a kill, it did buy UC Irvine the opportunity to push out in this lane and get themselves some early priority. University of Washington forced to respect the level 2 of their opponents. And I really want to draw attention to Drago's pathing here, as started with that late invade on the Raptors, knowing that Kha'Zix wasn't able to contest them. Headed towards his own Raptors, but didn't clear out that top side. Instead, not even finishing the blue buff, is going to be headed straight down towards the ball lane with the flash, the blooming blows onto Young Bin. Misses out the slow on the swirl seed though, but maybe he's not going to need it. Doesn't have the flash to follow up onto Young Bin though, as Eigenrector going down very, but it looks like they are going to be able to trade out the kill onto him down to flashes away. Isn't going down quite just yet as in the top lane. A bit of a trade going on, but not so much as Kim down with the dredge line. Spider-Man, folks, he's landed the root down, but he's going to go down very low. Drago finally secures himself the first blood. Heads up play from here to stop that full clear he might have been hoping for. Peel off the blue buff and look for was potentially a double kill down there in the bot lane, but it's going to settle for first blood. In the meantime, a bit of a different dynamic as it's Mike Young who opted for a full clear instead. Missed out on those Raptors as they were taken away from him, but is instead going to get the 5 camp into the Scuttle Crab and get his camps on an earlier reset than the Lilia. Pretty ironic, I would say, and is trying to find something here in the mid lane as the taunt comes down with punch, but Monksor might be in a bit of trouble here as Vomus Moore is able to pick up the kill, but the Mike Young TTV is going to get that one for himself as the root comes down on the Drago, and the dredge line is going to wait for the perfect opportunity to root up Drago, who they know has no flash, and a double kill going the way of the Kha'Zix, who's now 2-0 in this early game matchup and pulling ahead 2 camps against the Lilia, one of the premier farmers in the jungle, and suddenly one of the most powerful snowballing junglers in the game has gone off to a roaring start at just 4 minutes into this game.
We can see the Kha'Zix 4 minutes into the game. Kha'Zix already has 2k net gold in his pocket. And for a champion like Kha'Zix, spell
disaster for whatever lane he decides to gank, but also for Drago8, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for Mike Young TTV to find his way in for those invades, but instead Drago8 lauded him for his efficient pathing, but I'm really concerned about what's going on this game, as it seems like he's going for some risky ganks. Tries to send out a swirl seed towards the Gnar, who still has flash and hop available to him. Rona sends out a hook just to give the caster minion a little bit of a tap, but like I was saying, Drago8, when you're playing the Lilia, you're all about a full clearing off cooldown and finding good opportunities off those last camps, using that fully stacked movement speed for the gank opportunities, but instead, Drago8 taking a bit of a different approach and is trying to go off his reset for some really risky ganks that have not paid off. And when you're in this dynamic against the Kha'Zix, where your main advantage is going to be how much faster you're able to farm for him, when you cede that advantage away, then suddenly against the likes of the Cosmos, who's already 2-0 in this matchup, then you're really starting to fall behind, and it's showing as 36 CS to 28, and Drago 8 only now going to start up his blue buff at about 6 minutes into this game. This is the first blue buff of the game for Drago 8, and really not a good look, but here it is. He's going to be getting the movement speed and going to be running straight down the lane. Looks for the swirl seed, is able to land it onto Kim down. He goes in with the watch out Eve as Root is going to... It does not to his name. That's what happens when you don't take the blue buff, which is still alive. And Drago 8 opting for some really, I have to say, sinful ganks, as now Mike Young might be looking for something in the mid lane as the town comes through, and the tower dive is going to happen as some sort finally going to go down from that tower shot. He tanked it up dutifully for his jungler, but did pick up the kill. 3 kills to 0, or 3 kills, 0 deaths for the Cossacks as Drago 8 trying to find something with the swirl seed, but isn't going to connect. Blue buff still alive at 6 minutes and 30 seconds into this game. At most situations it would be respawned at this point, and that is such a bad spot, I think, for the kind of carry jungle position that Drago 8 is opting for, Lynk. Hold on a second, though. Mike Young TTV here with no mana on Vavamas Moore, trying to keep his last double attack onto the Lucian, but a really well-chained taunt into the Justice Punch is going to lock him up forever and secure yet another kill into the hands of Mike Young TTV. And now Drago 8, the deer with no sleep, is all by his lonesome and is getting locked up by that boomerang of the Gnar. And now another kill going the way of UC Irvine. And suddenly I think this early game is going off to even more of a roaring start than it was in game 1 for UC Irvine. And Lynk, that's saying something.
Yeah, I think... How do I put it? Like, for a team, if you're playing against the Cossacks, you gotta watch out for the potential snowball that he can have.
And you've also gotta watch out for that play. Kim down goes down pretty low, but so does Mario Cool 4 in the top lane. His explosive cast comes through and sends Clone Sheep into the turret. But one last boulder toss is gonna be dogged away with the flash from Mario Cool 4, but Kim down stuck inside the alcove, is able to land the dredge lines, able to walk away from... Cute from Caitlyn as the root is going to connect onto the Thresh and some sort down here in the ball lane, always on top of these plays alongside Mike Young, but aren't able to follow up onto the kill onto Verona. And once again, it pains me to see this as a jungler myself, but Drago 8 just not finding the chance to take a blue buff. The first blue buff of the game, still alive at 8 minutes into this game, and to Drago's credit, he's only about 6 CS behind, but I'd expect he'd be so much more ahead just because of how quickly the Lilia can farm, and it's really spelling a lot of doom for the University of Washington so early into this game, especially considering that Drago 8 is the single AP option available on this composition. But here we go again with the Justice Punch into the taunt. It's textbook, folks. The Dreadline landing as well, and the root going through, but the lands are going to keep Vavamas Mori alive, and now Kim down suddenly in a lot of trouble as the fully channeled Coley comes down onto him, and the flash from Vavamas Mori. All he needs is one more auto, but the Justice is so well placed from some sort, keeping Vavamas Mori from finding that one last auto that he needs onto Kim down. That's the Ninja Top he purchased, keeping the Nautilus alive, and some sort even finding the kill onto Mario Cool 4, who strayed his way down to try to follow up on the play. Nothing going right for the University of Washington.
Yeah.
Of course, if anything's going right, it is going to at least be Eigenrecker finding the opportunity to shove that one last wave in, but Young being on top of the rotation is going to find it some sort, though, in the mid lane. We talked about Vavamas Mori wanting to bully him out with this AD matchup, mitigating a lot of the magic resistance that the Galio innately has, but some sort's only 3 CS down, and he even has a death less than his opponent, Link.
And also it's worth pointing out that even if you have like a solo lane pressure, let's say in a Lucian versus Galio matchup, you gotta still watch out for the enemy's other members, like we see here. Oh wait, let's see here.
Hold on a second, Drago
against
the wall. He sends out the sleeve with the Justice Punch into the Gnar ultimate. Doesn't even give the deer a chance to act. Stopwatch extended as well, and maybe fortunately he didn't have to use the flash, but Drago 8 really having a rough spot here on this Lilia pick. He's constantly trying to find these plays. There was the Rift Herald, but earlier with a lot of those ganks that didn't come to fruition, and it's costing him so much as far as gold experience goes in Link. We talked about how on patch 11.4, junglers are getting less gold, they're getting less experience on these clears, and that's only setting Drago 8 even farther behind, as Mario Cool 4 might be in a lot of trouble here. Clone Sheep has the Mega available. Mario Cool trying to do whatever he can to thin out the way, but the stun is going to land. Mike Young finishing off the turret before he goes in. The explosive cast tries to keep him at bay, but here's the leap coming through as well. The invisibility going to get the stun, another boulder toss, and a really well coordinated gank between Clone Sheep and Mike Young TTV is going to mean the Kha'Zix coming up at 5-0 and 1 at just 11 minutes into this game. And Kha'Zix, he's kind of a pick that we don't often see in competitive play because often, because of the coordination of these teams, these kind of ganks aren't going to work. But he is absolutely showing up so far, and Drago 8 is trying to match him. Here's the Flash Lantern, and Blooming Blow's not going to land, but they're going to go with him down.
Type of a Nard?
Try to keep himself alive, but Drago now going down pretty low, but here's Clone Sheep with the teleport. Here he is, flow as well. The hero's entrance from some sort is going to secure yet another kill. 2 for 1 so far for UCI Irvine, but they're not done here, folks. If they're going to go in on Morona, but might be a bit of a misplay here. Watch going to keep him alive long enough for the Nard to get shut down by Morona, but Mama's Mori finally making its way over on the rotation, but only to watch his his support die. Fortunately, I think a 2 for 2, or 3 for 2, excuse me, in favor of UC Irvine, but the taunt lands onto Mama's Mori. Is there going to be any more follow-up? The Ignite comes down onto Young, just wait any further movement, but some sort. He is looking real scary, folks, and so is Mike Young TTV. There it is with the leap, but the sleep comes down and knocks him out. Guys him enough time to flash away from that one last turret shot, and Drago 8 showing up a little late to the play, even after he had initiated alongside Morona, and it's all they can do just to throw everything they have in and try to find Kim down with that 3-man gank. It's all that University of Washington can do just to find any kind of incremental advantage, but it is not enough to come back from this 4,000 gold deficit at 12 minutes into this game, and an absolutely terrifying bug in the jungle. Mike Young TTV with the Duskblade fully completed has 6 kills to his name, unprecedented for even some of the more meta junglers in this game. But this is what we've been talking about as we address the changes to the jungle this patch, Link. You can either opt for more focus on jungle trying to make up for that golden experience deficit, or you can move away from the clearing and go for these early ganks, and Mike NTTV seems like he is all over that playstyle.
Yep. And if you look at the pick of Galio here again, Galio's, like, despite being... Oh wait,
despite being locked up by the death sentence, he's gonna find the taunt on the Drago 8 nonetheless. There's the
Can they get the Galio?
No, Lilia doesn't even get a chance to breathe, but fortunately the shutdown going to go the way of Mario Cool 4. The explosive cast comes through. Mike and TTV gonna get put out for just a little bit as the rest of the team is going to follow up on his plan. Here's the curtain call to send out University of Washington 2 to land and 4th to miss. Morona going to go down instead to the Kha'Zix. 1 turret shot, not even going to do it, but here's the ace in the hole to find the shutdown onto the Kha'Zix. That is big, folks. 2 big shutdown going the way of the University of Washington, but at what cost? 4 members of their team getting dropped like bugs in the face of the Kha'Zix and the rest of the team following up on it. And even though the shutdowns went their way to get them back into this game, I think that's the best that they can hope for, as UC Irvine now have so much space to opt for this dragon play, but instead it's going to be Drago 8 with the first movement on this river, and they're going to try to wrestle this one away, knowing that UC Irvine is on the back timer. Let's see if they can pull it off. Taking it down pretty quickly. It looks like this one's going to go out with...
Should be able to get the dragon.
Yeah, yep, there it is. University of Washington not only able to pick up those 2 shutdowns, but even able to pick up the second dragon as well and prevent that accelerated pace game from going on as it had in Game 1. And just like in Game 1, here it is again, the Infernal Soul. Going to be up for grabs in this game, and I imagine an 8 with an Infernal Dragon at his belt is the very last thing University of Washington wants to see, but they're playing with those shutdowns, and some sort of playing with that Justice Punch if they're able to steal away the blue buff. Gold did go in the right spots in that last play, but Link, is it going to be enough to get University of Washington back into this game?
I think they need at least, I guess, at least one more team fight, one more proper team fight to turn around the current disadvantage the University of Washington has. Which brings back to the point that we've been talking about in Game 1, that is the front line and back lines overall connectivity. Like how well you coordinate it to shift forward and backward at the same pace. Especially if you have, like, if we are seeing a cam tank Gragas, which means that he will not be doing as much damage as if he's going AP. And which means that he'll be more like, instead of a mage, he'll be more leaning towards like a warden that's like a tank character who's gonna offer some healing to the rest of his team.
Right.
And Gragas himself being not exactly mobile.
Been holding on a second.
Coordination.
Gonna land onto Mike Young, but he bought himself a QSS and is going to use it. His Clone Chief has the Mega available. And
here's the Strike Breaker, but not enough reach.
Not going to be expended quite just yet, as the Death Sentence does land. Here's the hook in the box as well, but Hero's Entrance always on time to dissuade the University of Washington from the rest of this play. Clone Chief, though, without the Megas, might be in a bit of a rough spot here as the rest of the University of Washington is moving forward. And here's the Chem Tank coming through. Tom going to land onto the Gragas to wait any further play, but the explosive cast sending Mike into the clutches of the University of Washington. Some sorts on the rampage, taking down Mario Cole 4, and he's looking for more. He's out for blood. Is he going to try to find the taunt? On drag away, he's going down very low to 4, and that taunt from the Galio going to lock up.
Galio goes down, and then the
7 is here to follow up on the play. His death will not be in vain.
Mega again.
As the ace is going to come through for UC Irvine. The abilities connecting as we had hoped, and even if it means the cost of their lives, it doesn't matter for UC Irvine, as it's going to mean the second tier mid lane turret going their way in some sort, always showing up on this Galio, whether it's the Hero's Entrance or a big flank in the middle of the team fight, finding every single member with the Idol of Duran taunt.
If you review the whereabouts of all members on the University of Washington side, back when the 4-man taunt happened, the Galio was right in between the 4 members, instead of being on the other side, and that is the disconnection that I've been talking about. Like, you cannot allow a Galio to be at that location during such a crucial moment.
They've got the tank Gragas on their side, this key peeling member. Brushes Flay as well, but as soon as the Gragas drops, it opens up so much space for some sort to walk through that side of the river, get into the mid lane, and get into every single member of the University of Washington. And I want to point out something in his build. Ordinarily, we see things like the Proto Belt being opted for on the Galio, but instead he's got himself Shirelia's Revelry in his inventory. And as the 4-shot comes through for Youngbin, the Deadly Flourish is going to miss him, but almost more doing his best. This is out on the dredge line, but the culling only tickling him down. He's got himself the Ninja Tabi and the Locket of the Iron Solari to his name. As Clone Chief tries to find the Gnar ultimate, fortunately Blast Plant going to save his life, but maybe not save the life of Drago, as the deer is on the run, but has a lot of movement speed and is able to walk away from that one. But look how close Mike Young got to one-shotting him as Clone Chief looking for the play here, but there's the Warden. Oktoberfest Gragas going to dissuade Clone Chief from moving forward with that barrel toss, but UC Irvine practically playing with every inch of the map as they find themselves 1,000 gold ahead at just 19 minutes into this game. Look at the item builds. It's all Drago 8 can do just to pick himself up the Zonya's Hourglass at 20 minutes into this game. No Mythic to his name. He can hardly play the supportive role that he'd be hoping for, but here's the Swirl Speed landing onto at least the chin. She's trying to find the play with the Blooming Blows. He's forced to pop the Zonya's Hourglass early, and another big taunt from some sort. Everyone getting into the thing. 2 members, and the Baron's Boulder Toss going to come out as well, and now only Morona and Aegon Rector left in this team fight. Their whole team getting dived under beneath 2 turrets of their own, and there's no space left on the map for University of Washington to play with a 17 kill advantage at just 20 minutes into this game. No Baron Nashor alive, no Infernal Soul needed, not even the second dragon to their name. UC Irvine absolutely decimating the University of Washington in this game too, as Drago 8 tries to be the hero with the swirl seed, but he gets locked up and evaporated by the Cosmos. CLoL only going to find one member, as 3 members are alive for the University of Washington. Here is their last stand, folks.
Yep.
Clone Chief has the Mega available to him. Let's see if he decides to turn it around. He's going to go in. Has the Nor! On 3 on the end of. He absolutely turns it around on the University of Washington. No one going to go down on UC Irvine. Once again, completely humiliating the University of Washington in this team fight. They're going to take out the Nexus not even 21 minutes into this game, and that is going to be the series going 2-0 the way of UC Irvine in the most commanding fashion I have seen in CLoL. Link, I think I'm the same as you. I'm honestly at a loss for words.
Same.
As to how University of Washington, a team we've been so used to seeing methodically take apart their opponents, just get completely annihilated in 20 minutes. Before it, there was hardly ever a chance. They made it double-digit kills, I suppose, but every fight looked absolutely tipped in UC Irvine's favor, and some sort on that Galio, the Gnar as well. Yep. Every single team fight tool coming together. It seemed like University of Washington, even the Kazakhs picking himself up 11 kills in that game. I imagine he ended up with even more, everything coming together for UC Irvine. But on the other hand, in that game too, it seemed like University of Washington practically fell apart.
Mm-hmm. It's the disconnection, like how to put it, the disconnection between the front line and the back line are actually more separated in game 2, and which gives Galio basically a free pass, and the Gnar a free pass into the back line to access all the targets. And for backlines with so many squishies, that is devastating.
Yeah, it's
Evolution
it really seemed like University of Washington. This seemed lost in these team fights. They had whatever they could do. They were always trying to at least dogpile onto one opponent, make the best that they could out of their goal disadvantage. If they can take just one member out of the fight, it seemed like, then maybe they could try to even things out. But even if all of them use their resources like that, then it opened up so much space for whatever other member of UC Irvine was there to pick up on the rest of the play. If it wasn't some sort on the Galio, it was the massive Gnar ultimates. If it wasn't the Gnar, it was the Kazakhs always isolating and taking out those key backline members, and UC Irvine taking the lead in the early game and absolutely running away from it, or running away with it. University of Washington, it seemed like from minute 10, they hardly even got to play with their own jungle.
Yep, and don't forget about the Jin ult, which also provides further utilities for the divers, the Gnar, the Galio, and the Kazakhs. And it is also worth pointing out, when Jin starts the curtain calls, there's actually no way for the University of Washington to actually lock him down like as soon as the curtain starts calling, because there is a Nautilus in the way. And Nautilus is being one of the most heavily CC packed champion in the whole game. It's just not gonna let anyone pass through him and access the Jin.
Yeah, UC Irvine, that game too, such a tightly wound team composition, and it absolutely shows. And I think record pace when it comes to victories here in CLoL, especially against two such high or highly rated teams. And University of Washington, we started this night off talking about how they might want to adjust to the changes that we're seeing in patch 11.4. Before, it seemed like a lot of their playmaking pivoted around Drago 8, his intelligent pathing, his playmaking, especially around that top side. But both of these games, and especially in that game too, it did not come together for Drago 8. It seems like University of Washington on this new patch, even though it has only been 3 days out, they're having a bit of a harder time adjusting to this new kind of playstyle that I think they're kind of have to adapt.
It will take some time and some sacrifices on familiar champion picks, but it will be worth it.
Yep, absolutely. League of Legends, constantly changing game, and whoever's able to stay on top, who's ever to keep that crown for the longest, has always got to come down to who's able to be the first to adapt. And hopefully University of Washington learning from tonight's crushing defeat, are going to be able to rally their game plan for next week. But that's going to do it for us here tonight, folks. Thank you for joining us for the game of the week of CLoL, and we're going to be signing off, and thank you for joining us. And make sure, if you want to see more gameplay like this, and you want to follow the League of Legends esports team and all of our other esports teams here at the University of Washington as well, make sure to follow us here on our Twitch channel and on our socials at U of Wa Esports. But I'm going to be signing off. I've been Kestra, folks, and that's going to do it for us.
Bye-bye.